It's Friday, March 1st, 2024. Welcome to your new backcountry snowpack summary brought to you by North Shore Rescue. Well, the mountains sure look incredibly different this week. Since we talked last week, we received about 1 meter of snow. There was tons of wind, there were some rain events, so it was a pretty wild week weather-wise. But if you'd ask me last weekend what my wish was what the perfect weather scenario would be for the North Shore for this week, I would have picked something that's very, very close to what actually happened, which actually leaves us with a lot more snow than we had last week, much better skiing. And if you looked at the Avalanche Canada map and the special public avalanche warning that's in effect for this weekend, it affects pretty much everybody except for us. So I never thought I'd say this, especially not this year. But as far as the weather lottery goes, the North Shore definitely won this week. So if you want to know more about the weather this week and what the snowpack now looks like, and why the North Shore is not included in the special avalanche warning, despite the fact that we have high avalanche hazard rating for today, stick around for the snowpack discussion. Our profile site this week is at 1,300 meter on a northeast aspect. And I thought that what would be good is to go through the layer and talk about the weather that we have and how the weather actually managed to fix the problems as we went so that we didn't end up under that special avalanche warning. So for the sea to sky area, there's a couple of things that we're very worried about. One is a weak layer of facets over a crust that formed at the end of January, early February. So if we dig into the profile, we can actually still find that interface all the way down here. So that's about 1 meter deep. You can see still the crust all the way down there, and it got buried with snow, and there was that interface, and we talked about it actually in early February. But then since then it got pretty warm. When we got this snow here, it got warm. We have this crust that formed here, and that really took care of those facets. So we're not really concerned with any persistent weak layer deeper in the snowpack. The other thing that is in the SPA for the sea to sky area are wind slab that formed. So the first storm of the week happened on Sunday. It wasn't a ton of precipitation, but it came with tremendous winds. So the snow was redistributed quite a bit at higher elevation. But here on the North Shore, because the snow was so warm and it was moist on the surface, there really wasn't too much snow to transport, except maybe for like the really highest elevation around the North Shore. But certainly around here at 1,300, you can still see the crust and the sign that this snow was nice and wet when it got super windy, and it didn't really go anywhere. So we're also not really dealing with too much of a wind slab. So the next storm happened on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we got about, 30 to 50 centimeters. If I'm looking here in this profile, looks like 46 centimeters of snow all at once. It was also associated with quite a bit of wind. And right on the interface where the new snow was falling, there was that crust that we just talked about, and there was a thin layer of graupels that was sitting right on the crust. So during the day on Wednesday, the storm became warmer, and then it turned to rain. So if you went skiing on Wednesday, it was a pretty miserable day, and we had a pretty widespread avalanche cycle. So generally the crowns were between 30 and 40 centimeters. It was all of the new snow that was resting on that layer of graupel sitting on a crust. And what was particular about that avalanche cycle was the propagation. Some avalanches on the North Shore were like upwards to like 100 meters wide, even though they weren't super deep, like 30 to 40 centimeters, still a decent amount of snow. But then when you have that over 100 meters wide, that's starting to be a pretty sizable avalanche. Now, since then, that layer has tightened up a little bit, but it's still there. Now, the next thing in the weather to consider is that this warming at the end of the storm on Wednesday left a layer of slush. Like, it was really a layer of slush on top of the snowpack by Wednesday afternoon. And then Wednesday evening, very gradually, we transitioned from rain to snow again. So it didn't initially form like a hard crust. It just transitioned slowly to snow. So the new snow that fell on top of that wet layer is actually bonded quite well. And in the last 2 days, so Thursday and Friday, this is the snow that we received. So right here in this profile, we're looking at just about 40 centimeters of new snow. And it is bonded quite well to the crust that we just buried. And that crust is still kind of wet a little bit. It's in the process of freezing. It supports ski penetration quite well, but if you're walking every once in a while, you're going to punch through it. So this crust here offers really good bridging, meaning that even if this layer down here is still maybe a little bit questionable, I think this crust makes it much more difficult to trigger something all the way down there. As far as the new snow sitting on top, of course, you know, sitting on the crust is a concern, but as we just mentioned, the bond to that crust is really quite good. And this morning when we were out trying to trigger avalanches, we didn't really get anything on the crust. We were getting small results in a layer of slightly bigger grapple right there in the middle of the snow that we got in the last 48 hours. This morning, actually, it wasn't doing anything. It was just phenomenal skiing. And then just by the end of the morning, we're starting to see this snow settle into a little bit of more of a slab and starting to see shooting cracks, but not really any avalanche. Looking into the weekend, so we are not part of the special public avalanche warning. However, today is still high hazard. Going out, the things that you're going to want to look for is find that crust. When you're digging into the snow, find that crust. It should be around 40 centimeters deep. See how strong it is. See how the new snow is bonded, because, you know, this is just one profile site, but I suspect that this is fairly widespread throughout the North Shore, and really test that new snow and see if we have a little bit more of a slab forming during the day or tomorrow. And then the third thing to look for is the new snow. Because we have a very unstable atmosphere for the next few days, precipitation is going to be spotty and it's going to be intermittent. It snowed really hard and heavy this morning, and now it suddenly stopped altogether. So all the models are disagreeing quite a bit on how much precip we're going to get. So look for that crust. You can go and test that layer down there, but I find that the bridging up here probably makes this somewhat irrelevant. The new snow is where it's at, how it bonds to the crust, storm snow instabilities, and how much new precip we're getting on top of that. So hopefully you get a chance to go out and enjoy the snow. Be careful with your terrain choices, but I would say that this crust here is actually a really good thing for us on the North Shore, because it manages to cover a lot of the ground roughness. So there is a lot of terrain that was just not skiable last week that is now covered in this nice supportive crust, and that covered a lot of stuff. So stay safe out there. That's all I got for this week, and we'll see you next week.